What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog, episode 18. August is upon us, and July was kind of a tough month. I was fortunate enough to play 11 times in the month of July. About 11 days in, I found myself down over $1,000, but I was able to claw back and book a really small loss, so I'm hoping August brings me a little bit more good luck. So make sure if you enjoy the content, drop a like and subscribe. It will help the channel. Let's get to it. In the first hand of the night, we're in the small blind and we look down at Ace-6 of hearts. There's two limpers before the action gets to me and I bump it up to $8. The big blind calls and both limpers call, so we're off to the flop 4 ways. The flop is King-7-5 rainbow, so haven't really flopped much of anything here. I check and under the gun puts a bet out for $15. Everybody else folds, and for whatever reason I decide to put in the call and see a turn. The turn's an 8 of hearts, so now I've picked up a flush draw, and I have an open-ended straight draw. I check, and under the gun once again leads for $15. I should probably put a raise in here with so many outs, but I elect to just call and see a river. The river is a blank and I don't get there. Once again I check my action, my opponent leads out for $40, and I make the fold. In the next hand, we're in the hijack and we look down at Ace-Jack offsuit. There's two limpers, and when it gets to me, I bump the action up to $10. The button calls and the low jack calls, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is Queen-Jack-7 with 2 hearts. The low jack leads out for $15, and we both make the call here, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 9 of clubs, and once again, my opponent leads out for $15. This is where I decide to go ahead and put a little pressure on the hand, and I raise to $45. The button folds, and the low jack ends up tanking for a good 30 seconds, double checks her cards, and ends up making the call. So I'm thinking she might have a flush draw or maybe some sort of 10x hand. We're off to the river. The river is a 7 of hearts, so the flush does in fact get there, but my opponent slows down and checks. I want to put out a bet to represent the flush, but I think she may actually also have one, and I end up chickening out and I just check behind. She shows Queen-10 for the better pair and wins the hand. After that, I went through this spell where I was getting dealt all sorts of suited aces and suited connectors and Broadway cards, but I just couldn't connect with any flops, and I faced a decent amount of aggression. I bet and blinded away about $125 over the course of about the next 35 minutes, so my stack has taken a little bit of a hit. We were in the small blind when we looked down at 5-9 of spades. I had informed the table that I wanted to move to the seat to my left after this hand, and I made mention that it would make for a better angle on my vlog. There's 2 limpers, and as one guy limps, he makes the comment,
"Don't put me on here. See you later,
I call, and the big blind checks his action, so we're off to the flop. The flop is King-10-8 with 2 spades. It checks around to a late position player who bets $15. The action folds back to me, and I decide I want to go ahead and put a raise in, and I raise to $35. And my opponent makes the call. Again, he mentions he does not want to make the vlog for playing a losing hand.
What did I just tell him? Don't put me on YouTube. Me getting beat down. First hand is gonna.
This next card's not going to help him very much. It's the 7 of hearts. So now I've picked up a double gutter to go along with my flush draw. I lead out here for $55. I didn't realize he was short stacked, and he comes back over the top for $57 total. It's only $2 more to make the call, so I do. Listen in.
Thank you.
I got all the draws in the world. That's one of them. Straight.
The river's a 6 of diamonds. I hit my straight. He shows 2 pair with King-7, but I win. And again, listen to his comment.
Thank you. Put it on YouTube.
Don't worry.
Sorry, buddy. You're going to make the vlog. The table ended up getting short-handed and played that way for about 20 minutes before someone asked if we could break the table. So I've moved off to a new table. We're in the cutoff, and we look down at Ace-Queen offsuit. It folds around to the hijack who limps. When the action gets to me, I bump it up to $14. Both blinds call, but the hijack folds, so we're off to the flop 3 ways. The flop is 6-7 Queen rainbow, so I flop top pair here. It checks to the big blind who bets out for $20. This is a pretty unconnected board, but the big blind is a guy who's been giving a lot of action since I sat down, so I want to try to get some more chips in there. I think a min click is going to look way too strong, so I bump it up to $55. The small blind folds. The big blind is thinking, and he thinks for a good 30 to 40 seconds, then he lets his hand go. He asked if I had a pair, and of course I lie and say no. He says he had a 7. So I win the hand, but what would you have done there? Would you have just called to see the turn, or would you raise a player who's been giving a lot of action? Let me know in the comments below. There's a button straddle. We are under the gun, and we look down at 10-jack offsuit. It folds around to me, and I go ahead and call the straddle. Then the low jack raises to $14. The hijack from the last hand calls, the cutoff calls, the button calls, and so I make the call as well. We're off to a flop. The flop is favorable. It's 7, 8, 9 with 2 clubs. I go ahead and check my nut straight, and it checks all the way around to the hijack who bets $15. The cutoff folds, but the button makes the call. This bet to me feels like some sort of draw, like maybe clubs or 10x or jack x. With the club draw on this super connected board, I decide I want to go ahead and raise it up, so I raise to $80. I'm targeting the hijack who I did this to in the last hand to see if I can get him to make a tilted call. But he folds pretty quickly, and the button folds as well, and we win. There's another button straddle. We're in the cutoff when we look down at ace-5 offsuit. The small blind and big blind both fold their action, but +1 calls and +2 calls as well. There's almost $20 of dead money out there, and people have told me I need to start raising these ace-deuce through ace-5 hands more often because they play so good post-flop. So I put in the squeeze to $25. I can see the button is immediately folding, and so is +2. +1 thinks about it, but he folds, +2 folds, and I win. We were in +2 this time when we look down at pocket aces. It folds around to me, and I open for a little lighter than I normally would with aces. I open up for $10. I feel there's a lot of implied odds if I can get certain people at the table to call, so I want to try to price them in. The button is one of those players, and he calls. The big blind calls as well, so we're off to a flop 3 ways. The flop is ace, jack, deuce, rainbow, so I've got this board pretty locked up, and I check, and everybody else checks, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 6, and it brings in the full rainbow. The big blind leads out here for $10, and with this board being a complete rainbow with no real draw out there, I choose to just make the call, and that brings the button along as well. We're off to the river. The river is a 4, so 3-5 gets there, but I don't expect anybody to have that hand. The big blind checks it over to me, and I put a bet of $17 out. I'm looking for a crying call and actually hoping that they can both find a call. The button ends up folding his hand, but the big blind does call. I show my hand, and he shows pocket queen, so I kind of wonder if I left a little bit of value out there on the river by betting so small. We're in the button now when we look down at 10-jack offsuit. I was busy trying to put notes in my phone from previous hands and clean up my notes a little bit, and I kind of missed all the action early, but from what I can tell, +2 leads out for $6. The cutoff makes the call, I make the call, and the big blind also calls, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 9-10 king with 2 clubs, so I flop middle pair and a gut shot straight draw. It checks to the cutoff who leads for $10. Having my pair and a gut shot and a backdoor club draw, I feel that I want to go ahead and try to fold out other draws, and so I raise it up to $35. The big blind folds, +2 makes the call, and the cutoff also calls, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 4, it shouldn't really change anything. Both draws miss, and so when it checks to me, I want to represent the strongest hand and see if I can get a king to fold and get all of the other draws out. So I bet $75. Looking back, it's only a little over half pot, so I'm giving +2 almost 3-1 to make the call, and if he does, then the cutoff will be getting almost 4-1, so I definitely should have sized up here. However, they all end up folding. Kind of interesting to win a hand that I don't really even remember the beginning of. One of the opponents from this next hand was sitting directly to my right, and he had made mention that he was on a 3-day heater playing online poker tournaments. He had been running pretty hot since he sat down at the table. He's in +2, I'm in +3 when I look down at 5-6 of clubs. It folds around to +2 who makes the call, and I bump it up to $10. I've got to start raising these suited connectors more, so I did. However, I'm not happy when I see this. 3 snap calls from the small blind, the big blind, and +2. Uh-oh. The flop is king deuce 5, so I flop middle pair, but the action actually checks all the way through, so we're off to the turn. The turn is a 6, so now I have 2 pair. It checks to me, and I go ahead and put a bet out for $25. The small blind makes the call with only about $50 to $60 behind and plus 2 snap calls, so we're off to the river. The river is another 6. Bink. My opponent in plus 2 then leads out for $50. I do a little bit of Hollywooding and try to look real uncomfortable.
Really?
Then I ultimately put in the raise to $135. The short stack small blind folds, but plus 2 can't call me quick enough. I table my hand and he shows queen 6 for trips. What a cooler. Maybe the heater's over. This last hand of the night is an absolute monster. I'm in late position when I look down at pocket jacks. There's 2 early position callers, and when the action gets to me, I bump it up to $16. The big blind, plus 1 and plus 2 all make the call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. The flop is 10 jack ace, so I've flopped middle set here. The action checks to me, and I bet out for $45. The big blind, who's directly across from me, looks a little bit uncomfortable, but he ends up counting out and making the call. Everybody else folds, we're off to the turn. The turn is a 5 of hearts. It seems like a really safe card, so I start thinking, what hands am I beating? I'm new to trying to figure out these hand combination calculations, so bear with me if I'm a little bit wrong on this, but I'm beating ace king, which there's 12 combos of. I'm beating ace queen, which there's 12 combos of. I'm beating king 10, which there's 12 combos of. I'm beating queen 10, which there's 12 combos of. I'm beating queen 9, which there's 16 combos of, and I'm beating 8-9, which there's 16 combinations of. What are some less likely hands I'm beating? I'm still beating pocket kings, there's 6 combinations of that. I'm still beating pocket queens, there's 6 combinations of that. I'm also beating 4 combinations of king jack, 4 combinations of queen jack, and 3 combinations of jack 10. So there's 91 total different combinations I'm beating here. What's beating me? There's really only 2 hands. Pocket aces, which there's 3 combinations of, and king queen, which there's 16 different combinations of. So there's 91 hands I'm beating, there's only 19 I'm losing to. So with all of that information, I jam my stack, $139 effective. My opponent in the big blind ends up making the call, and he shows king queen for the flopped Broadway. I asked the dealer to pair the board, but there's no luck. The river is a 9. What a cooler.
Unbelievable. How much?
149.
39?
But it's good.
Unbelievable.
That was a difficult call for him.
Jesus Christ.
I'm still up for the day, though, and I decide that's enough for tonight, and I rack up and book a win.
Wow. Poker is like the sickest game ever. Boy, the night started off just not great. Losing some pots early, getting out flopped, getting 3-bet. I was frustrated because I didn't think this was going to make for much of a vlog. Got a table transfer when my table broke. Then went on this incredible run where it felt like I couldn't lose. Then the pocket jacks. When the flop came out, I said, God, this is such a dangerous flop. But, there was really only 2 hands I was losing to there. Pocket aces and king queen. Just incredible. I don't know where my car is. Where the hell did I park? Oh, I parked over here. I remember now. No, I don't. I don't know where my car is.
I'm ahead of so many hands and really only losing to aces and king queen. And I put the guy in about 140 effective. And of course, he's got king queen. So I was still up, and I decided to go ahead and just book the very modest win for tonight. So into the game for 350, out for 445. So $95 in about 4 hours. It's not going to pay the bills, but it should make for a fun vlog. So make sure you drop a like and subscribe. It helps the channel, and we'll see you next time. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more poker content. And you can follow me on Instagram at 7cardflushpoker.